understand sometimes the reality of climate change, mostly because they are afraid that they would scare people away, because the situation we're living at the moment is so catastrophic, and we are heading towards catastrophe, that people or scientists, politicians, even NGOs, they are scared to demobilize and demoralize people. But we believe that if we don't speak out the truth, you know, it's like a cancer. If you have a cancer, you can only treat it if you recognize that you have a cancer. And in addition to that, we believe that you can not only solve that problem and cure that cancer, but by doing so, you can build a better world. And this is really the strategy of Alternativa, is to raise hope in the battle against climate change and encourage people to take concrete action and to take part in the climate movement, to strengthen and widen the climate movement. And we are showing to people the many concrete alternatives that exist. And this is really important, because this way people wouldn't think about the climate change as something, you know, too general, too abstract, that's so far from my personal life, I can't do anything. But instead they see, yeah, okay, there are all these solutions, and they can not only better improve my life, but the life of everybody, and I can fight the climate change. So what is happening at the moment is that climate change is worsening and accelerating. We see that the warning signs of climate change are intensifying. We have, for example, rising sea levels. We have polar ice caps and glaciers that are already melting. We have, for example, in the French west coast, close to the Basque country, in one winter the coast retreated by 10 meters, so which is pretty alarming. And then you have the proliferation and intensification of natural catastrophes with Hurricane Katrina in the USA. At the moment in California you have an historic drought, which is really directly affecting people's lives. And for example, 2 years ago you had this typhoon in the Philippines, which was quite catastrophic for many people as well. And all this is just a taste of what is to come. And what is to come is these extreme events becoming more and more frequent. And this is what climatologists say. The problem is that when climatologists explain the problem, they do it in a scientific manner. Obviously, it's their job, and they do it in a cold way, and they are often not pedagogical. So when people hear about climate, about global warming, they think, ah, cool, it's getting warmer. So where's the problem? But in fact, what we tell people is that you have to think about it as fever with the human body. Just a few degrees, sometimes even, you know, 0.5 degrees of change of the temperature of your human body causes intense stress and illness. And this is exactly the same with the average temperature of the planet Earth. And to give an historic example, the 10,000 years ago, at the last ice age, the Earth was 5 degrees colder than now. And at that time, the sea level was 130 meters lower. So 5 degrees, 130 meters. So this is it's a different world you're living in, basically. And the difference is that back then, when we witnessed the transition from the last ice age to the modern civilization, to the current phase of civilization and we are living, it happened very, very slowly, and it took thousands and thousands of years. But what we are doing now is that we are changing the Earth temperature in just 100 years. So we really started to increase the Earth temperature in 1880. So this is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, end of the 19th century, where scientists say this was the moment where really humans started to massively emit greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, atmosphere and caused the global warming. And since then, the Earth average temperature already rise by 0.85 degrees. So since 1880, the Earth's temperature rose already by 0.85 degree. So this just in 100 years. So then the other thing is this problem of the thresholds. So the political consensus about what is the critical threshold of global warming is 2 degrees. It was reached in Rio in the Earth Summit in 1992, where politicians said, okay, the Earth temperature can't rise more than by 2 degrees. Yeah, and so currently we have enhanced the Earth temperature by 0.85. Scientists, they say actually the critical threshold is 1.6 degree and not 2 degree of temperature rise. The thing is, what does this mean, this critical threshold? The thing is, with climate change, it's not proportional. It's not like you warm up the Earth more and more, and the catastrophes are becoming more and more. It's not gradual. Actually, there are thresholds, and this is the threshold I just talked about. And then there are serious effects of positive feedback loops, they call it like that, which is basically phenomena are starting in the ecosystems, which make that climate change is getting worsening, is accelerating, and are triggering consequences which become irreversible. So for example, you have these enormous quantities of methane stocked into the frozen grounds of Siberia, Canada, and what's happened as these soils melt, the methane gets liberated, and methane is a much stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, and it lasts way more than carbon dioxide. It stays way longer in the atmosphere. So you have these massive quantities of methane getting emitted. Then you have other effects which happen when we trespass the thresholds. Is, for example, the plant's capacity to generate more oxygen and absorb carbon dioxide is also affected, even to a point where many plants will stop emitting more oxygen than they absorb carbon dioxide. So, and they will start producing more carbon dioxide than they emit oxygen. So the greenhouse gas effect is intensifying as well. Then you have the phenomena of the melting of the polar ice caps. You know, you have these ice caps in the North and South Pole, and so these are huge layers of ice, meaning white matter. White matter is reflecting sunlight. As these ice caps melt, less sunlight gets reflected, so the Earth warms up even more. So this is called the albedo effect. And you have a bunch of these feedback, these loop effects, which are intensifying themselves. And what happens then is that the climate change is getting out of our reach. So when this happens, then we, humanity, we will only be reacting to climate change. We will not longer be able to control it, actually, by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, because then it's a runaway climate change, as they call it. And this is really important. Then, furthermore, about where are we heading now? So, at the latest reports by there were two latest reports by French scientific institutes, the CERFAX and the CNRS. CNRS is the Centre National de Recherche Scientifique, and they lately compiled studies about climate change which took into account the most recent developments, that the latest IPCC